UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I am your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll take you all the way to 10 o'clock with 3 thrilling hours of breaking news, provocative views and topical debate. Get involved, get it off your chest and get on the show by calling me on 03444 991,000 or you can WhatsApp voice note me on exactly the same number and I promise to play your message out. It's Monday, April the 7th. Here's what's coming up. At the epicentre of Keir Starmer's outrageous dispensing of two-tier justice, loving mum Lucy Connolly is serving a grotesquely disproportionate 31-month jail sentence for posting hurty words on social media. Now, as the Tory councillor's wife begs to be allowed out to see her 12-year-old daughter and continues her appeal against her harsh sentence, calls are growing for an end to Lucy's prison nightmare. When Starmer presides over locking people up for Twitter and Facebook posts, how can he sit in the Oval Office and tell Donald Trump he's proud of Britain's tradition of free speech? Isn't our socialist Prime Minister actually an enemy of free speech? 0344 499 1000. In other news, just stop Hoyle. Big spending speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle is still desperately trying to justify spaffing £250,000 worth of taxpayers' money on 2 years of luxury travel, insisting that he flew first and business class, stayed in 900 quid a night hotels, hired chauffeur-driven limousines, even a private jet, took his wife and parliamentary staff along for the ride too, and I quote, "Speak truth to power." Oh, is that what you call it? Who does this freeloading old Labourite think he's kidding? 0344 499 1000. Plus, after furious parents staged an angry protest outside the state primary school that cancelled Easter. Who do you support? The head teacher who axed the British state's official religion to be more inclusive towards her rural town's tiny number of Muslims? Or the mums and dads who want their kids to enjoy their school's traditional services and the Easter bonnet parade? Who do you support? 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, after fully endorsing the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, Britain's worryingly woeful Foreign Secretary David Lammy has angrily attacked Israel for refusing entry to 2 obscure backbench Labour MPs who immigration officers concluded were planning to, and I quote, spread anti-Israel hatred. This pair of posers said they were part of an official parliamentary delegation, which was a lie. So why should they expect to be let in? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, more maddening developments on the migrant crisis front as the Home Office refuses to reveal how many kids are crossing the channel with unrelated adults. Why won't they tell us? 0344 499 1000. And yet more madness on the trans front as two blokes, men, battle it out in the final of a women's pool tournament. What's going on? 0344 499 1000. And the nurse who called a scumbag paedophile pretending to be a woman Mr. is suspended by the NHS for alleged transphobia. And what is happening to the pedo for calling that same nurse the N-word? Nothing. Is that fair? Is that what you want from your health service? 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, find out why the RAF's crack red arrows display team could soon be flying in Russian jets. Does that seem right to you? 03444991000, and get the latest on Prince Harry as he prepares yet again to appeal against the British court's ruling that he does not warrant armed police protection on his visits to the UK. That's tomorrow. While Meghan is forced to send refunds to the unlucky, or arguably lucky, punters who ordered her $28 jars of honey, only to find out they're all sold out. Everything's going wrong for the difficult Duchess, as ever. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now, on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And my normal Monday mate, Russell Quirk, is off sunning himself somewhere spectacular at the moment. I'm in the wrong job. He's clearly not. But what a super sub we've got. We will spend the first 60 sizzling minutes of tonight's show in the excellent company of the chairman of the Great British Pack, Ben Habib. Welcome, Ben.
Good evening, Kevin. Good to see you. As always.
Good to see you, mate, as well. Now, first off, we've got lots of stories that I think are rather up your street. This one, I think, is the big story of the day. It's been building in momentum for some time, but certainly over the weekend, I think it began to reach crisis point. We're talking about Lucy Connolly. Lucy Connolly was one of the many people who I believe received unjustly harsh, disproportionate sentences in the wake of the Southport riots, the summer riots. Lucy posted something, that I wouldn't condone, I wouldn't approve of. It was about mass deportation and setting fire to asylum seekers' hotels. She did that in her middle-class house on her keyboard, put that out, and for that, she got an incredible 31 months in jail. That's 2 years and 7 months. Now, that is extraordinary. I mean, as I say, no one is condoning what she said. It's a horrible thing that she said. But in the end, is that worth 2 years and 7 months in jail? She's a middle-class housewife. She's married to a Tory councillor. She's a loving mum, and actually not so long ago faced the heartbreak of losing her son in a hospital blunder, which has had a profound effect on her. That she put forward as a mitigation against her harsh sentence. Nobody listened. Now, after Alison Pearson, my friend and colleague, columnist in the Daily Telegraph, wrote a long and moving piece on Saturday's edition. Suella Braverman's come in, Liz Truss has come in, Richard Tice from the Reform UK Party, top Tories, top Reform people, more and more politicians coming in and saying, we don't condone what she did, but this is wrong. This sentence is too long. She's been begging to come out, even on a temporary leave, to see her 12-year-old daughter, who apparently is having trouble at school. As you can imagine, she's probably rather upset that her mother's in prison. She's begged to come out. They won't let her. She's also begging for a proper appeal against the longevity of this sentence. No one will listen to her. But I think Suella Braverman, Liz Truss, Richard Tice, and all the other people, decent-minded people, who are calling for a review of this case are exactly right. This is two-tier justice at its very worst, imposed on this nation by two-tier Keir. And I think the authorities should listen, and we need to get this woman out of jail. She's been there for a long time already, but it's grotesque to think that she should have to serve 2 years and 7 months for a silly post on social media. Don't you agree?
Of course, I completely agree. And it's something, actually, that I've been banging on about ever since August 2024, when the Prime Minister took it upon himself to describe all those that, in my mind, were perfectly justified in protesting, obviously not protesting violently, but were justified in protesting against the brutal murders of 3 young girls who we've subsequently found out were stabbed, not just multiple times. One of them, I think, was stabbed 86 times, the other 92 times, and the third one, a similar number. And the one that was stabbed 86 times, he only stopped stabbing her because he attempted to then remove her head. This was Axel Rudakabana, and the protests to which we're referring and where Lucy Connolly made her comments were in respect of those killings. When the nation heard of the brutal killings of these three children, it knew something wasn't right. The Prime Minister described Axel Rudakabana as a Welshman, which was deflection. There's no way in the world that Axel Rudakabana is a Welshman. He may be a British citizen, he may live in Cardiff, but the colloquial construction of a Welshman is someone outstanding in his field. And that's the image that the Prime Minister wished to convey. He wished to deflect from the reality of the fact that this was a second-generation Rwandan who had attacked three white underage. There's no age at which you can attack people legitimately. Children, infants, and he tried to behead one of them. Lucy Connolly did not have to give any mitigating circumstances for her behavior. She was angry. And in a moment of anger, like lots of human beings, she posted something which she subsequently regretted. She said things that she subsequently regretted. We've all been there in a moment of anger. She deleted it an hour later. And yet, the criminal justice system, which the Prime Minister directed to arrest people like Lucy Connolly, moved to his order. And I think, actually, Kevin, if you look, there are 71 or 72 people who were arrested for what they said and not what they did in the aftermath of those protests. They are all serving criminal sentences, with the exception of one individual, Peter Lynch, who was sentenced for 2 years and 8 months and hanged himself in prison a couple of months later because he couldn't take the pressure. So all hats off to Alison Pearson for bringing this to our attention. But this is something that should have been in the British psyche from August 2024. And people like Peter Lynch should have had an inquiry after their death. It is an absolute abomination of British justice that we've got 72 odd people in jail, in prison, because of what they said, not because of what they did, particularly in the aftermath of such a brutal killing, which was deflected by the Prime Minister. And I know we're going to talk about Lindsay Hoyle. Lindsay Hoyle got up in Parliament, and I'm going to bring this up again when we talk about
Please do.
But he got up in Parliament and he shut up the MPs and he said, you mustn't talk about the killings. You mustn't talk about the killings for fear of compromising the case. But what he effectively did was stop parliamentarians from challenging the Prime Minister, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, and Merseyside Police, who should have been challenged, and the challenging of which would not have compromised the case against Axel Rudakabana one iota. Because what we saw in the aftermath of the killings of those infants in Southport was a miscarriage of justice at the hands of our Prime Minister, directing the criminal justice system to arrest people like Lucy Connolly, Peter Lynch, and as I say, 70-odd other people who are now incarcerated. They should all be released. There should be an inquiry into how the hell it was that people who simply put stuff on Twitter or other social media could now be in prison. Yeah. And there should be a specific inquiry into the death of Peter Lynch, who hanged himself in prison. A 61-year-old grandfather who in his life hadn't put a foot wrong until he put some hurty words on a board and said some hurty words to some policemen. And if you need testimony for the fact that we have a broken two-tier criminal justice system in the United Kingdom, it's what happened in the aftermath of those protests following the tragic killings, the abominable killings of those three young girls.
Absolutely. Now, 400 people ended up in court or thereabouts after the widespread UK riots, not just Southport, but around the country. Among those numbers, there were nearly 1,000 arrests after that first weekend. Yeah. Among that number, incredibly, were two 12-year-old boys and a 13-year-old girl.
Well, there you go.
And on it went. And do you know what enrages me? Now, look, some of these people were the brick throwers, the people trying to set fire to a mosque and things like that. I think they've got sentences that were probably way over the top, but no one is condoning what they did. Keir Starmer tried to say, to imply that everybody that went to Southport, or indeed other cities over that summer, the last summer of discontent when people were so upset about what happened in Southport, Keir Starmer tried to imply that every single protester, every single person who went out on the streets was a far-right thug. Well, that isn't true. The vast majority of people who demonstrated on the streets of Britain in the summer were people protesting about a migrant crisis that they felt was spiraling out of control. Furthermore, they were saying, we believe that the perpetrator of this dreadful triple murder, and don't forget he hideously injured quite a few more other people as well.
Absolutely.
Rudy Obama. They were saying, we believe that this is a migrant. This may be a migrant. Now, he wasn't quite technically a full-on migrant, but the authorities, as you say, they tried to say, no, he's a Welsh kid who moved north, nothing to see.
Which is a deflection. Yeah, Kevin, that's a deflection.
Exactly
that
right.
Makes you think of someone who's lived in Wales, bred from a ancestry of Welsh.
The authorities essentially told us lies. They told us lies. They said nothing to see here, no migrant connection. Well, there was, because his parents were Rwandan migrants, and we were not told the truth then. But this is what infuriates me. 400 people in court, as you say, 70 of them for things, 70 of them are in jail now. Many of those in jail just for what they wrote. Or in Peter Lynch's case, holding up a placard. He didn't do anything. He just held up a placard.
And this man is dead.
Yeah,
this man is dead, Kevin.
Exactly.
And we don't raise any questions about it.
Well, we have a prime minister. This is what I'm getting to. A scene that I replay in my mind time and time again that enrages me, that this little man, Keir Starmer, had the temerity to go to America when Keir Starmer and J.D. Vance were berating him about freedom of speech in Britain, the freedom of speech that Keir Starmer has so egregiously trampled all over. He's the enemy of freedom of speech. He sat there saying, yes, we're very proud of our tradition of freedom of speech in Britain. How dare he? This man is the enemy of free speech, I say.
We don't have freedom of speech. We had I think there was a bill going through Parliament recently which would have required educational establishments in this country to honour the principle of free speech. But isn't it absurd, Kevin, that we now need an act of Parliament to require our educational establishments to allow people to speak freely? When I went to school and university, we all spoke freely. And let me tell you, when I was at school, I came from Karachi in 1979 with a Pakistani accent. I experienced all sorts of ridiculous comments made about me, my ancestry, where I came from, the way I spoke, etc. But that is part of growing up. If you can't be offended, if you can't offend, you cannot have a debate. And if you cannot have a debate, you cannot settle that which you have in your mind as your political, philosophical ideology. And if you can't settle that, all that's left is indoctrination. And that is where we've ended up. The art of debate, the preparedness to offend and be offended, the preparedness to actually push the boundaries of what is socially acceptable have been set aside in preference for indoctrination. So we were meant to just accept Axel Rudy Cabana as a through and through British citizen. He's a Welshman, just like every other Welshman who's been there for thousands of years. And we should just accept that the crimes that he did were nothing more than crimes, that there's no inherent malign government at fault as a result of what happened in Southport.
Yeah.
And it is an abominable situation that free speech should be shut down effectively, Kevin, for the protection of people like Axel Rudy Cabana. And let's not forget, the Crime Prosecution Service even refused to release his name for some time, to release the severity of the acts that he committed, about which they were aware instantly for months. For months, we didn't know.
I'll tell you what we've got to do. We've got to stop the government and people like Keir Starmer and the Crown Prosecution Service telling us You can't talk about this. We can't tell you this. You mustn't discuss this because we may prejudice a trial that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Until someone is charged, we must not be told we can prejudice a trial, because until they are charged, there is no trial. That is pretty sacred. That is pretty sacred.
100% agree. But also there were questions that should have been asked in Parliament which had nothing to do with the trial. Questions like, Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper, Merseyside Police, when did you know about the identity of this killer? When did you know about the severity and the criminal manner in which he perpetrated his killing? When did you know about the many times he was first arrested? Those questions still haven't been asked.
Yeah.
I know Nigel Farage said in an interview that this is one of the biggest political cover-ups of history, but I haven't heard Nigel Farage stay in Parliament, challenge the Prime Minister in Parliament, saying, what the devil went on that day and in the aftermath of that killing? Why hasn't this, if this is the biggest political cover-up in history, why isn't every parliamentarian hopping up and down trying to figure out what's gone on? It's taken Alison Pearson, it's great that she's done it, but it's taken Alison Pearson 7-8 months after the event to write about it, to get this into the British psyche. It's an abominable reflection on the way our society is now governed.
Absolutely. Now, listen, everybody, let me know what you think about Lucy Connolly serving 2 years and 7 months for a few hurty words she posted on, I believe it was Twitter. Surely this is wrong. She's a middle-class mum. She's the wife of a Tory councillor. She had a moment of madness, you know. She lost her temper. Why is she still in jail? Why won't they listen to her appeal? And why won't they allow her out at least to see her 12-year-old daughter? We are still treating Lucy Connolly as if she's the criminal of the century. Two-tier justice, folks. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Next up, after this break, Just Stop Hoyle. More on the big spending speakers, global travel. Stay tuned for that.
In one of their documents that where they actually say that the trustees accept that ESG risks will impact on the returns of the fund. Well, hang on. I mean, that literally means they're accepting that political ideology is more important than their fiduciary duties to the beneficiaries of the pension fund. And I just think it's another example where the obsession with net zero and environmental, social, governance issues is costing the taxpayer huge sums of money.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Before we go back to Ben Habib, we were talking about Peter Lynch. He is the 61-year-old grandfather arrested for allegedly rioting in the wake of Southport. He died on October the 19th, 2024, last year, while serving a 2-year and 8-month sentence at Moorland Prison near Doncaster. His death is under investigation by the Prisons and Probation Ombudsman, as is standard procedure for the deaths in custody situation. The government has yet to make an official statement on it, but it has been widely reported that he hanged himself, that he committed suicide. The inquest into Lynch's death is ongoing, and further details may emerge as the investigation progresses. Let's go back now to Ben. Now, Ben, I wanted to get you on this because literally a week ago we reported with some agitation, if you like, that a school, a state primary school in the rather lovely rural town of Eastleigh in Hampshire, which you might like to know has a population of about 136,000. Of those, just over 1,000 are Muslims. It's 136,000, just over 1,000 Muslims. The head teacher, somebody called Stephanie Mander, took it upon herself to cancel Easter. No Easter services at her British state school, bearing in mind that Britain does have an official state religion. It's called Christianity. Also, I think almost in our godless times, I think almost more upsetting, she cancelled the kids' traditional Easter bonnet parade. So the kids were all upset. So no Easter services, no Easter bonnet parade. This weekend, angry parents gathered outside the school to protest, saying she wants to cancel Easter. Why don't we cancel Stephanie Mander? I don't approve of cancelling anyone, but I do think that she has overstepped her mark. And I think that this government should say to the head teachers of state schools, you should respect this state, Britain's official religion. So she's cancelled the traditional Easter services and celebrations, Christian celebrations, because she's worried about, in a town of 136,000, just over 1,000 Muslims. She thinks that if they celebrate Easter, it won't be inclusive. I'm with the parents on this one. She should be made to celebrate Easter at a British Christian school, don't you think?
I think there should be no schools in this country other than British Christian schools where we are taught proudly about our history and our Christian cultural heritage. Even if people in the schools are not practicing Christians, they should be taught Christianity. That is what I was taught when I was brought up in this country. I was taught Christianity. And let's just focus for a second on what Easter is about, Kevin. It's about Christ dying on the cross for our sins. It is so fundamentally of a peaceful message. It's a message of delivery. It's a message of deliverance. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. It's a message that resonates not just with Christians. It's a message that resonates with any decent, generous, kind-hearted individual. Why would you cancel Easter? And just the other thing I would say, this is a subsidiary point. It's not the main point. The main point is that we should be proud of our history, our Christian culture, our Christian heritage. We should teach Christianity fundamentally. But the minor point here, which is obviously lost on this individual, is that Jesus Christ is himself a very highly regarded prophet in Islam. When it comes to doomsday, it is Jesus Christ, according to the Quran, who is going to come back and adjudicate on the crimes of sins, rather, of people at doomsday. That is in Islam. So no Muslim could legitimately claim that they are offended by Easter. It's a Christian celebration, but it's of a prophet that is highly regarded in Islam. That is the subsidiary point. But unless and until the United Kingdom recognizes that it is a Christian culture, that our heritage, our Christian heritage, amongst other things, but our heritage more broadly, is absolutely vital, was absolutely vital in the creation of the country that we are, the great country that we once were. And unless we come to that realization, unless we understand that that is who we are, we will effectively cease to be.
Yeah.
What she effectively did is turn her back on being British.
But I don't
That's
think
what she did.
I agree with you, Ben, but I don't think she should literally be allowed to do this because I'm sorry to inform all of these lefties who say, "Oh, well, we're not really all that Christian anymore. It's not like it used to be." Well, perhaps culturally you've got a point, but as a matter of political fact, Britain is not a secular state. You might like to know, for example, Iraq is a secular state. Iraq, for example, does not have an official state religion. America obviously doesn't, but we here in Britain do. We have an official state religion, and I don't think that any local head teacher should be able to brainwash her kids, her pupils, with her own left-wing political worldview.
I completely agree.
She shouldn't be allowed. That's what's going on here. We've got a lefty teacher, wants to be inclusive, diversity and all that to the very small number of Muslims who live in her town, and on the back of that, sacrifice the kids' Easter bonnet parade, the kids' Easter services. She wants to do that because that's what she believes. Thereby, she is brainwashing her kids.
It's indoctrination again.
Indoctrination
right.
towards her worldview. And I think that the British state, should say to people like Stephanie Mander, you are employed by the state and you will do as you're told, and you will allow Christian kids at a Christian school to have Easter services and indeed their Easter bonnet parade. Just be told. We shouldn't let them freelance like this, people like Stephanie Mander, should we?
I'm so glad you brought up the point about indoctrination, because ultimately that's what took place there. She will be saying to herself and to the pupils and others that actually I'm broadening the agenda. I'm setting aside indoctrination because I'm not going to stuff Christianity down your throat. But actually what she did was set aside the Christian roots of this country, the cultural Christianity of this country, to indoctrinate her children, her pupils, with her worldview. And it comes straight back to what we were discussing in the first segment. Straight back to the first segment, where we had to somehow think of Axel Rudikabana as a Welsh individual. We are setting aside the ability to think straight, the preparedness to talk straight, to have an honest debate. We're setting that aside for the indoctrination of diversity, the so-called diversity, equity and inclusion.
And well, we're going to move on in a second, Ben, but just to get you even more annoyed, because it certainly gets me even more annoyed, let me ask the audience what you all think of this. Guess what Stephanie Mander is replacing Easter with? Drum roll, Refugee Week. Indoctrination, right?
Absolutely. And it's so political. It's so political. It's not with the welfare of the children in her mind. What could be a better message to send to her children than Jesus died on the cross for our sins? It's a moving message. It's a message of, as I say, deliverance. It allows us to go forward in our lives with optimism because he died for us. And yet she's depriving her children of that central critical message and giving them nonsense about Refugee Week.
It's absolutely...
Which, by the way, is Illegal Migrant Week.
Illegal Migrant Week. I think maybe we'll talk about them in a minute. But, well, listen, Ben, let's move on. And when we come back, we're going to talk about... what are we? We're going to talk about Just Stop Hoyle. Just Stop Hoyle, Lindsay Hoyle. So he has been attempting to justify his astronomical £250,000 worth of taxpayer-funded expenses. We'll talk about that after these messages.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with the chair of the Great British PAC, former Reform Deputy Leader, of course, as well, Ben Habib. Ben, I want to talk about Lindsay Hoyle. I've been running quite an impassioned campaign called Just Stop Hoyle. Insofar as this guy, thanks to the Daily Mail, has been revealed to have spaffed more than £250,000 of taxpayers' money, travelling the globe in some luxury style, jet-setting around, staying at 900 quid a night hotels, 400 quid meals. He's been hiring chauffeur-driven limousines. When he went to Montserrat in the Caribbean, he actually hired a private jet. He's been to places like Los Angeles, Australia, the Cayman Islands, 19 very glamorous trips, sometimes taking his parliamentary staff and, drumroll, his wife on these trips, and so on and so forth. So we have been saying, this is outrageous. You're the Speaker. Why are you flying around spending all our money on these unnecessary trips? Of course, they always say it's fact-finding. The Speaker of the mother of all parliaments does not need to go to the Cayman Islands to find out how their little parliament works. He really doesn't. That trip cost us about 36,000 quid. Thanks, Linz. Anyway, he gave a speech to the Society of Editors last week in which he sort of said, oh, well, I have to do this, because, it's fact-finding. I've got to represent the parliament. Oh, yeah, right. You never represent the parliament in Belgium or Siberia, do you? You only represent parliament in very nice places where the sun shines and there's palm trees. But he is now said in a piece in the Times that the reason he has to do all this global travel is because he travels the world speaking truth to power. That's his justification.
But that's not his job. That's not his job.
Yeah, I know. Who does he think he's kidding, this old Labourite, this old freeloading Labourite? Honestly, Ben, it's an outrage.
Well, I mean, there's only one job Lindsay Hoyle has, and that is to chair Parliament. He's like the chairman of Parliament. He is the adjudicator of debate in Parliament, and making sure that parliamentarians observe due protocol when they engage with each other. It's actually not a very highbrow job. He should never be the story. He is meant to sit in the background and allow the story to unfold in the Commons. And yet repeatedly we hear about Hoyle. We've discussed him before in this programme. Twice already, and we're discussing him for the third time. This is a man whose ego outstretches his job. He's done podcasts. He's on social media. He gives his opinion. He shuts down debate in Parliament on crucial issues. He travels the world at our expense. This is a deeply damaging individual. He shouldn't be chair of anything, let alone the incredibly important position of Speaker of the House of Commons, which is, as you say, the heart of our democracy, the mother of all democracies, where freedom of speech should reign, but where he shuts it down in the pursuit of going abroad to the Caribbean and other places at our cost.
Yeah,
I thought when Bercow went, I thought, great, Bercow's gone. We might get someone decent. And then we got this monkey.
Yeah, we haven't got anybody decent, that's for damn sure. And of course, then we have this other problem. You spoke earlier, Ben, about, shall we say, the timidity of MPs on certain issues. They don't like to upset the apple cart too much when it comes to some topics. And on the topic of the spendthrift Speaker of the House, they remain massively silent. They will not criticise this guy, because if they get on the wrong side of him, if they get in his bad books, he won't call them to make their little speeches that they think will propel them to high office. So that's what's going on. And now he's saying, you know, I can completely justify all this money that I've spent on your behalf because I'm speaking truth to power around the world. He also talks
That's
about
not his job. That's not his job.
Exactly right. He also talks about all these conferences that various speakers have around the world. You know, they get together to find out who says order, order the best. How do you say it? I say order, order. How do you say it? I say order, order. You know, as if that's the discussion. Then, well, what on earth did this lot talk about? And he says, what do you think it would be look like if Britain wasn't represented at these conferences? Fine by me, Lindsay. We wouldn't notice. You're going there because you love globetrotting. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Well, he doesn't represent British interests when he's sitting in Parliament. How can we expect him to represent British interests when he goes abroad? Yeah. This is a man, in my view, who stands against British citizens' interests. This is the man, as we discussed earlier, shut down genuine debate over the atrocities that took place in Southport. I don't take this man seriously. I don't take the government seriously. I don't take Keir Starmer seriously. Frankly, I don't take the vast majority of parliamentarians, with the exception of maybe a handful, seriously. I think they are dumbed down district councillors passing messages on behalf of whoever their paymasters are, rather than actually standing for British interests. And this man will take, clearly, as you've outlined, any amount of pocket money that he can from our pockets, rather, into his pocket, in order to have a good life. It's really deeply distressing.
When he went to St Helena via South Africa, I think he flew business class, may have been first class, it's always one or the other, with his team. He arrived at the airport, and by the way, they flew to South Africa, and then there was a 4-day period where they waited for their plane to St Helena, and nobody quite knows what they did at all, apart from enjoy themselves. Maybe they went on one of those safaris that Angela Rayner likes to go on, or wanted to go on, when she goes representing Britain on the African continent. By the way, they disappeared into South Africa for about 4 days and then went to St Helena, British kind of islands in the middle of nowhere. And he claimed, I think it was £29,000 or something for that trip. But when he got to the airport in Britain, they said, oh, you got too much luggage, Sir Lindsay. You know, you got way... So rather than get rid of one of the bags, we paid, £500...
I'm sure we paid.
Yeah, £500 excess baggage on an extra case that he wanted to take with him. £500. He doesn't mind spending our money, does he?
I tell you what,
yeah.
I would have given him £5,000 if he'd gone to St Helena like Napoleon and not come back.
Get on your next trip, Sir Lindsay, just take a one-way ticket. That would be a good idea.
One-way ticket, exactly.
Let's not forget, when he first moved into the Speaker's palatial apartment in the middle of the House of Commons, it's right on the river. It's said to be the private residence with the best view in London. He ordered £7 million worth of improvements and then organised a £36,000 portrait of himself to hang in the corridors outside. He is rather self-important, I would say, to the least. But Lindsay, if you're watching, stop spending our money. Stop it. We've got your number. I mean, for God's sake. And stop, you know, when you're in a hole, don't dig a deeper hole. That's what he keeps doing. I can justify this. I can justify this. No, Lindsay, you really can't. Next up, Ben, let's talk about these two MPs, these Labourites, who headed for Israel and weren't allowed in. We'll talk about that after this break.
in one of their documents that where they actually say that the trustees accept that ESG risks will impact on the returns of the fund. Well, hang on. I mean, that literally means they're accepting that political ideology is more important than their fiduciary duties to the beneficiaries of the pension fund. And I just think it's another example where the obsession with net zero and environmental, social governance issues is costing the taxpayer huge sums of money.
Because Harry and Meghan have never actually worked in their lives. But fancy picking on a black female, which Harry has just done, given, as you've laid out, all of what's gone before us, accusing the royal family of racism, but of course very cleverly not saying who, so that the thing would fester and fester. So it has come back to bite them. But where we shouldn't be surprised is, don't forget, Harry, this is the individual that years ago was photographed wearing a Nazi uniform.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with the chair of the Great British PAC, Ben Habib. Ben, you will recall last year when the International Criminal Court, a pretty notoriously left-wing mob they are too, they issued an arrest warrant for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for alleged war crimes. You will recall that our worryingly hopeless Foreign Secretary David Lammy immediately, couldn't wait to back them, immediately announced Britain will 100% cooperate, he said. So he actually, in effect, said if the democratically elected Prime Minister of Israel comes to Britain, Britain will back his arrest for the International Criminal Court. An absolutely ridiculous thing to say. But then again, Lammy is a ridiculous man. Now he's at the centre of another row because on Saturday, two lefty backbench Labour MPs flew to Israel. They were the incredibly obscure Yuan Yang, the MP for Early and Woodley, and the equally obscure Abtisam Mohammed, the MP for Sheffield Central. Now, they arrived there and basically weren't allowed in. They said that they were here as part, this is their quote, part of an official parliamentary delegation from Britain. What they actually wanted to do was to go to the West Bank and sort of sympathise with the Palestinians and talk about humanitarian horrors committed by Israel. So Israel said, well, sorry, we believe that you are here to spread anti-Israel hatred and you're not coming in. So they were turned around. Now, Israel did actually say to this pair of posers, look, you can appeal this decision. We will even pay for a hotel for you in the airport area. But you're not coming in at this stage. So they both get on the plane and they came back and they're now talking about their outrageous treatment. And also Lammy is saying this is absolutely disgusting, disgraceful, this mustn't happen. And when Kemi Badenoch defended the right of Israel to police its own borders, which I think we should all defend, Lammy stormed, it's disgraceful. You are cheerleading another country for detaining and deporting two British MPs. Do you say the same about Tory MPs from China? And Kemi said, quite well, I thought, unlike China, Israel is our ally and a democracy. A good foreign secretary will be able to make that distinction. It's so double standards, isn't it? And who do these two MPs think they are? You can't talk about naive. You know, one of them is obviously a Muslim. I don't know what Yuan Yang's religion is, but they are classic left-wing, Labour backbenchers. Who do they think they are? That they could just turn up in Israel and say, oh, we're going off to talk to the Palestinians about how awful you are. I mean, talk about naive. I'll tell you something. If nothing else, Keir Starmer should bollock these two and say, don't do that again. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. I mean, it's naive and it's stupid. It's stupid and it's entitled. How dare they go to a sovereign democratic country and regard themselves having a right to be there to speak against that same sovereign country? And I mean, our government should take a lead from the fact that actually you can detain and deport people. Maybe if they'd gone there in a dinghy, they would have got other treatment. But the other thing I think worth just touching on is their preparedness to liken China to Israel. And of course, we all know that China is effectively a communist totalitarian regime and Israel is a democracy and an ally. But the fact that they don't know the difference intuitively and in their gut, that they don't feel that Israel is more like us than China is, tells you how completely hijacked their ideology is.
Well, but Ben, these people hate Israel. These people are classic left-wing Labour MPs. They hate Israel.
Absolutely.
They absolutely hate Israel.
And what about all the Uyghur Muslims? You know, they talk about Muslim rights and Islamophobia and the persecution of Muslims by Israel in Gaza, etc. The Chinese are persecuting millions of Muslims, have done so for decades. No one seems in our government to give a damn. We'll continue to have free trade with China. We'll continue to import their tat, made often by slave labor, made often by industry that's powered by coal power rather than by renewables. And we'll turn a blind eye to all of that. And yet when a country, enforces its sovereign right to protect itself, these people are all up in arms. It's a complete joke.
Yeah, and these two, talk about entitled. They think that they could just turn up. As the Israelis say, they kind of pretended this was official British government business. And of course the Israeli immigration officials checked all their files. There was nothing about them at all. They hadn't been informed or pre-warned at all about these two Labour politicians turning up there. So it wasn't an official British government business trip for a kick-off. They then, both of them, issue a statement saying that we're astounded at this unprecedented step taken by the Israeli authorities. It is vital that parliamentarians are able to witness firsthand the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory and so on and so forth. Who the hell do you two think you are? Also,
Why don't these MPs go to suburban England and look at the disaster that they've made of those areas rather than going to Israel, trying to find problems for Israel? Go to Rotherham. Go to Leeds, go to Leicester, go to any number of places in the United Kingdom where British people are being abused and protect those people. Don't go to Israel and start protecting foreigners.
And they chose, as I say, Israel said, look, I don't think that Israel does this for everyone, but they said, since you are, British MPs, you're representatives of the people, and you object to us not letting you in, we will actually pay for your hotel to stay here while you lodge your appeal.
That's the only thing, Kevin, that's the only thing with which I disagree with the Israeli government.
Well,
they should have put them in jail. They should have put them in prison. I would not have given them a hotel room. Sorry, I interrupted you.
And then thrown away the key. That's just a joke. But anyway, Israel went out of their way to help. But what did they do? Oh, no, we don't want that. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll fly home and we'll make a big noise about it, so we'll look really heroic to all the pro-Palestine fanatics here in Britain and all our fellow Labour Israel haters. That's what this is all about. Couple of kids, naive kids. That's how they behaved, and I think they embarrassed this country, to be honest with you.
I think our government embarrasses this country. I think our government stands against this country. Our government is an absolute travesty. We've discussed nothing other than the way that they've abused this country throughout this programme. Starting from Southport to the double standards of Lindsay Hoyle, the teacher setting aside Christian culture. I mean, it's an abomination, the way that we've been delivered into this existential threat that the country faces.
I'll tell you, Ben, it is all getting very, very worrying. As I say, on any given day, I could come up with 5 or 6 stories that you and I think could really anger the people of Britain about. And it's all down to this hopeless government, this dangerous government, I think. Ben, been a pleasure speaking to you as always. Come on again very soon. Ben Habib, the chair of the Great British PAC there. Now, listen, when we come back, a very interesting story. It involves the number of children making illegal crossings across the English Channel to Britain. The Home Office won't tell us how many there are. Why do you think that is? I'm genuinely not sure, but we are going to discuss this and find out why we're being kept in the dark. That next after the news. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I hope you're all enjoying my tariff-free show. I'm sick of tariffs, aren't you? I mean, you know, so far, who's feeling any pain? No one, really. I mean, only time will tell. And let's wait. And as I keep saying, you know, OK, a lot of countries are saying what Donald Trump is doing is going to be very ruinous for us, is going to be very problematical. But what he's doing, he is doing what he said he would do, and he's looking after his own country. As I say, you've got to remember this, right? Until his tariff about changing all the tariffs last week. Remember, we covered it live on a very amusing Thursday night it was too, as he held up that board and said, right, 10% for Britain and all that. You know, we did quite well. But until then, when Britain flogged goods to America, and we flog a lot, we're a huge client of America, they're a huge client of ours, the tariffs that America was charging us were 1.3%. When they flogged us their goods, we were charging them 10%. So what Donald Trump has done, he's just said, right, here's what we'll do. We'll charge you the same as you were charging us. So 10%, 10%. So a load of people in Britain go, how can he do this? How can he do this? Well, OK, it's painful for us. You know, it's going to massive hit for us. 25%, by the way, on cars. It's going to have a devastating effect on our car industry. 25,000 people could lose their jobs. But can we really just keep saying to America, no, let us keep charging you 10% and we'll charge you 1.3%? You know, I mean, that's just not fair, is it? That's what he's doing. He's trying to even things up around the world. It's having a tumultuous effect. But he's looking after America. America first. Wouldn't you like a Prime Minister who was strident in looking after Britain? Britain first? I would. What do you think? If you must talk about tariffs, give me a ring. 03444991000. But let's stick to news that's interesting, shall we? In a little while, I'm going to be talking to Robert Bates, Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, about another one of these enticements, these amazing enticements that tempt migrants to break into our country illegally. And that is, of course, free healthcare at the NHS. Foreigners, the NHS has written off 256 million quid's worth of foreigners turning up and saying, yeah, I'll pay you back. Then we operate on them, we treat them, then they bugger off. And we never hear from them again. 256 million quid has gone down the drain in that respect, and it continues to. So that's pretty mad, isn't it? We're also going to talk a little later in this hour about the women's pool competition. The finalists, the two finalists of a female pool competition were blokes, two blokes. Oh, I'm sorry, trans women, they identify as women, two blokes. What's that about? What is that about? And we will also be talking later in the show about the Red Arrows, the RAF's crack display team, jet team, you know, the famous Red Arrows. Find out why they could soon be using Russian jets. That's a good idea, isn't it? What could possibly go wrong? All that's still to come. We'll be taking your calls later in the show as well, so any of these issues you want to get off your chest, 0344 499 1000, or you can send me a WhatsApp voice note on the same number. We'll read it out, that's a promise. Now, this is a perplexing and worrying story. It is this. Now, a guy who's pretty much now on the staff of this show, our friend Liam T down in Folkestone, who lives on the front line of the migrant crisis. He sees these boats coming and go day in, day out, and all these migrants being led to four-star hotels and being given 45 quid a week, free food, free lawyers, free doctors, free dentists, all that stuff. And he sees the migrants milling around his town, getting free driving lessons, free driving tests that we pay for. Why is that? Does anyone know? So, you know, Liam gets a little bit annoyed about this, and so do millions of other British people. So Liam, to his essential credit, to his eternal credit, I should say, he puts in freedom of information requests. So he's the guy who asked Kent County Council, for Folkestone is in the county of Kent, the Garden of England and all that, how much they were spending, paying for illegal migrants' driving lessons and driving tests. It turns out over the past year, they 20 million quid, more than 20 million pounds, for people who we don't even know if they're going to stay, because they're asylum seekers. They're not successful asylum applicants, but we're paying for their driving test. Isn't that special? Now, Liam has put in another freedom of information request, which I think has elicited an alarming response. So what he said is, so what happens when these boats come across? Quite often there are a few kids, sometimes quite a few kids in the boats. And then when the officials, the immigration officials, sort of like trying to work out who's this kid with, where's his parents, where's his mum, where's his dad, her dad, mum, her dad, there isn't anyone. So these kids come across with adults who are unrelated to them. I think the idea is that those adults believe that will help them get in, help them get asylum. There'll be no questions asked. Well, you're with a kid, we can't hold this person up. So they use the kid as a prop for easy access to this country. Now, Liam said, well, how many? How many? And they came back and they said, we can't tell you this, or we've decided we're not going to tell you this, because the numbers, according to them, are so low, the exact numbers of kids, unrelated kids, who come across essentially on their own with some adult or other on these boats. They say the numbers are so low that if we told you the numbers, that would identify them, and they're minors, they're kids, and that would be wrong. Well, yeah, I don't think you should identify children, but I'm not sure In fact, I can't for the life of me work out how, if the Home Office said, I don't know, 6,000 came over last year, 6,000 kids, why does that identify them? Or if they said 6 kids, why does that identify them? It doesn't, does it? Anyway, let's talk to our Freedom of Information hero, Folkestone's finest, Liam T. Welcome, Liam.
Good evening, Kevin. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Always a pleasure. Well, you know, I just relayed your story that they won't tell you how many kids come over with adults to whom they're not related. As I said, I believe that these kids are used as a kind of a prop to facilitate easy access. No one's going to turn around somebody with a little frightened little kid. So anyway, they won't tell you, and they say we do tell you the numbers are so low. By the way, why should we believe them that the numbers are so low? You know, we can't just take it as read. But they say the exact numbers are so low that if we told you the numbers, that would identify the children. That doesn't follow. There's no logic in that, is there?
No, absolutely. I mean, basically, the reason I put SOI in is because
Liam, this line is terrible. We're going to have to reconnect. So we'll go back to Liam. We'll reconnect to Liam. But in the meantime, you know, as I just said, that's what we're talking about. A Freedom of Information request by our friend Liam T, a concerned citizen of Folkestone, who sees migrants coming in all the time. How many children who are turning up unrelated to the adults that they're with. Can't tell you that on the alleged grounds that this is an exact quote. Exact figures are low, and therefore individuals may be identifiable to the public. That doesn't follow. Listen, while we get Liam back, do you remember, let's go to Hampshire, because you remember we're talking about that school that has cancelled Easter. Well, we're going to talk now to Laura Jane, who I read here. Hello, Laura Jane. I gather you've written to this head teacher, Stephanie Mander, to express your horror about the cancellation of this important Christian religious festival.
Yeah, a few of us, we live in Stockbridge, which is in Hampshire, and a few of us wrote the head teacher separately so that she had a few letters. And we felt so strongly we're of an older age group. It's not that we've got...
Laura Jane, we're having one of those nightmares. This line is terrible. So that's 2 calls in a row have been terrible lines. But we're going to have to come back to you. But I definitely want to talk to you. We'll get back in touch. We'll get a better line and we'll discuss this. I need to talk. I believe we got Liam back. God, it's all happening, isn't it, on this show? Liam is back now. Liam, talk to me. Does that seem better? Talk.
Hello. Does it work now?
That's much better. That's much better.
Okay.
As I was saying, how does it... If, for example, the Home Office did answer your request and said, we can tell you that, I don't know, 126 kids came over the past year with unrelated adults. That's a low number. How does that identify them?
Well, you see, it's completely baffling because, as you know, my late mum used to work for Kent County Council with unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. Now, these aren't unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. These are children that are coming across with adults and they have no relation to them. So, as you said earlier, I've been thinking it over the weekend. I've got the FOI here. So I sent it on the 9th of March, and they said, in line with Section 42 of the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, we are unable to provide the information requested as the exact figures are low and therefore individuals may be identifiable to the public.
How?
Which is baffling.
How, Liam? How does that work? If you tell me 6,000 or 6, how does that identify them? They're looking for reasons not to tell you, aren't they?
Yeah, well, we've got to be very careful what we say here. But
the Home Office? No, we don't.
No, well, I've been thinking about the reasons why over the weekend, and as you said earlier on, it could be that this is willingly, you know, say, for example, you are wanting to come to the UK and a family that lives next door, for example, says, we can't afford to go, you take my kid. And maybe that will benefit us both because they can then send for us lot when they finally arrive in Dover. That's, with the parents' consent. The other reason, I dread to think it's every parent's worst nightmare. So presumably these children are being, they are identified by the social services. Kent County Council is, and I know from personal experience with my late mum, for example, that they are very, very high, very, very stretched. But then you've got to think, well, there could be kids that are in school, for example, that, don't have their parents or whatever. It's really tricky. But to say that the figures are low admits, what business do adults have bringing kids with no relation to the country?
Well,
surely
I think it's they're used as a prop mainly. And by the way, we should also point out that kids do turn up with monotonous regularity. Little kids who made their own way to Calais. It does happen. But your actual request, I've got it in front of me now, was in 2024, January the 1st to the 31st of December. So that's the last full year. How many of those claiming adults asylum after crossing the Channel were found to be in possession of or accompanied by a child with no relation to them? This could be through abduction, smuggling, or smuggling, for example. As you say, their response was in line with Section 40(2) of the Freedom of Information Act. We are unable to provide the information requested as the exact figures are low and therefore individuals may be identifiable to the public. There's no logic in that, is there? There's no logic in that.
None whatsoever. But what it goes to show is that there are children arriving in that have absolutely no connection to the adults. And it's clear, people over the age of 18 by law here, adults with no relation to them. That in itself is something that needs investigating.
Yeah, it is. This line is going bad again. But this is the point. Is there any indication of how many, maybe you should put in an FOI request about this, how many actual kids come across with their parents, with their mums, with their dads, who are related to them? Do we have any kind of percentage? Do we know about that?
Well, no, I used to go down and cover the river dogs a few years ago, for a year or two.
Liam, this is going again. Oh God! Look, can we just try and get Liam back one last time because this line is terrible. Yeah. So what he's talking about here is children who turn up with adults, and it happens all the time. It does happen regularly, but they're not related to these adults. That's what he wants to know about. That's a very worrying syndrome. And the Home Office doesn't seem to want to tell us. Now, what I'm saying is, and I think Liam would agree, what we don't accept, we can't have the government turning around to us and saying, well, we're not telling you because the exact figures are low. What do you mean by that? What are the exact figures? The Freedom of Information Act for you guys and girls at the Home Office is this. You have to supply us with the information we request. How do we know that the numbers are low? What do you mean by the fact the numbers are low? Compared to what? We can't have you making your value judgments about what's low, what's high. You owe us these figures, don't you think? I want to find out what everybody else thinks. 03444991000. I think we're probably going to have to park old Liam today. We might get him back tomorrow for a proper chat about this. But you've got the essence of it. Children, unrelated children, are turning up in this country with adults, asylum seekers, and Liam wants to know how many, and the Home Office won't tell him, won't tell us, won't tell the British people. They can't make value judgments about what is a low number and what is a high number. That's not for them to do, because that means we have to implicitly accept their valuations, and we're not prepared to do that. So we need to know. Don't you feel, folks, that we need to know how many unaccompanied, unrelated children are making these illegal crossings? Don't you think? And why would you say that the Home Office is not telling us? 0344 499 1000. When we come back, I'm going to be joined by the excellent Robert Bates. We're going to talk about, well, he's an expert on the escalating migrant crisis. And we're going to talk about one of the great enticements, and that is, of course, free treatment with the NHS. More and more foreigners are turning up claiming expensive treatment. One Nigerian person turned up, got £500,000 worth of treatment on the NHS in London. We're supposed to bill them and their country to pay for it. Disappeared, never to be paid. So 256 million quid has gone south, has gone missing, gone down the drain in this way. Foreigners coming into the country going, I'm sick, I just happened to have got sick while I'm here. Us treating them on the free NHS. Frankly, NHS officials remiss in saying who's paying for this, where are you from, what's your health service, etc. Just treating them, and then they disappear. We're losing hundreds of millions of pounds like that. So you could say the NHS is losing it, but it's our money, folks. They're spaffing it by not pinning these people down. Got to do something about this, haven't we? Stay tuned for that next.
This only happened to me today on the way to the studio in this very building. I've told you this already. I'm in the lift.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think of this, Rebecca. This is how mad the world is. Two men, am I allowed to say that? And a woman.
Yeah.
Doors open, floor two. I said ladies first. Looked at me like I'd literally got into her house on Christmas Day and weed on the kids. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do anymore. Oh, if we're starting this at 3, the world's gone nuts.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. He's from the Centre for Migration Control, and he is, of course, the great Robert Bates, and he's in the studio. Thanks for coming in, Robert.
Thanks for having me, Kev.
Now, first of all, before we get to a couple of stories I want to talk to you about, slightly outside of your remit, but we thought we'd try you on some pastures new. Why not? But this is familiar territory for you, at least the topic is. We have a friend of the show, a guy called Liam T, who lives in Folkestone, who gets irritated by all the migrants he sees docking in Folkestone Harbour. He sees them being put into hotels, he sees them being given free driving lessons, and he puts in freedom of information requests. Now, one of the things he's been noticing over the years, particularly recently, is quite a few kids turn up, little kids. Now, some of them obviously turn up with their real mums or their real dads, maybe sometimes both. But he says that quite a few, as far as he can work out, they're unrelated to the adults that they arrive with, which begs the question, what's going on here? You know, are these adult migrants using these kids as props? Somehow or other, you know, I've got a little kid here, you can't refuse me entry, you know, suffer the child and all that. Or is it just that these kids need some grown-up to help them come across? Either way, he put in a request to the Home Office saying, could you tell me over the last year the number of kids who've turned up with adults to whom they are unrelated? The Home Office wrote back saying, we can't help you there because the number of children who arrive in the exact number of children who arrive in this fashion is low, and therefore if we give you the number, that will help to identify them. I don't see how that follows at all.
No, it makes no sense.
And it also it is, when they say the numbers are low, why should we accept their value judgment of what low is? This is an abuse of the FOI system, I think. But why do you think it is that the Home Office doesn't want to tell us this information?
Yeah, so first of all, great job to Liam. I think he's getting at the nub of something that's very important here in terms of why are so many children coming across with people that are so clearly not people that they're related to. And I think we're probably maybe starting to see the beginnings of another one of those kind of ruses that are sort of purported and attempted by individuals that are coming across the channel. Obviously, we know people claim that they're homosexual when they're not. They claim that they're adult children when they're not. They claim that they're Christian when they're not. And these are the kind of ruses that people are attempting. I think what we're probably starting to see here is adults realising that children are far, far, far more likely to be given that asylum status and that protection and that refugee status than adults are. Yeah. And therefore what we're probably seeing now is the start of adults sending their children first rather than the adults heading over to the channel first, and therefore they're more likely to be given that refugee status and can then send for mum and dad at a later date. Yeah. I think what Liam's encountering with the Home Office and with the FOI and the pushback is really indicative of the problem that we have in general when it comes to immigration, which is that A, the Home Office is really bad at keeping this data and actually is a really ramshackle organisation that is not fit for purpose. But secondly, they are well aware now that people are thoroughly fed up with the immigration experiment that's been going on, both legal and illegal, and are beginning to ask questions that would put them in quite an awkward position, and therefore they will pull every trick of the trade to be able to maintain this information, to conceal this information from the British public. Because unofficially, the people at the Home Office, it seems to me, most of them, or maybe all of them, they see themselves as a sort of asylum-seeking facility operation, that they that they want as many to come in as possible. So when you get awkward people like Liam, and probably you as well, and maybe even me, they do as much as they possibly can to stymie us, to make sure we don't get this information. Because if, for example, they said, we don't know the numbers because they won't tell us, but if, for example, we said, oh, last year 6,000 came over, I mean, that would be an extremely worrying syndrome. And as you say, I bet you the number is going up and up and up. This could be the latest ruse. Grab yourself a kid and they'll let you in every single time. So the next question about these children is, are they there voluntarily? I mean, sometimes I guess it could be that some adult is just trying to help them get across. But more likely, in my view, it would be an adult using the kid to help them get in. So yeah, I mean, very worrying, and I think not acceptable that the Home Office won't tell us the numbers.
No, I don't think it. I think it is at all, and I think it's actually
really inconsiderate and is doing a huge disservice to the taxpayer. This is the kind of conversation that we need to be having. I mean, this is now one of, if not the most important issue that voters care about, the kind of the channel crossings and the absolute sheer audacity of those individuals that are breaching our sovereignty, and therefore every nook and cranny of it does need to be explored. We have the right to be able to discuss these things freely, but for the Home Office to just sit there almost safeguarding and shielding this information from us leads to conspiracy theory. It leads to people starting to think, what is going on here, what is being hidden from us. And you know, it would be much easier for the civil servants that clearly view the British public with disdain, clearly think that, you know, Liam and myself and others such as yourself as well are just out to cause trouble and to make things a bit more difficult for their noble cause and their crusade that they're on. They think it's just, you know, better for everyone, better all around. It's a universal good to keep us in the dark, and you know, it's not on in this day and age.
Yeah, Tony Blair always said that his worst mistake was the Freedom of Information Act.
Well, I can well imagine.
You mustn't let the people know about stuff. Oh no, they mustn't have information. You know what they say, folks? Information is power. That's why they don't want you. These politicians don't want you to have information, because that will give you power. It will give people like Liam power, and people like
Heaven
Robert,
forbid.
people like Robert power, and even maybe people like me. They don't like this. Now, before we go to break, you know, this is probably slightly up your street. It's about the NHS and the number of foreigners. It's a ridiculous soft touch for foreigners who deliberately come over here on purpose to get some free treatment. So we have written off over the past year 250, or the NHS has written off 256 million quid's worth of treatment. So when, for example, a Nigerian comes over claiming, oh, I happened to get sick while I was here in Britain, please can you treat me, there should be a reciprocal deal whereby the Nigerian authorities pay for that, their citizens' treatment. But what happens is, and by the way, one freeloading Nigerian ran up £500,000 worth of health tourism on the NHS in London. Now, what's happening is these foreigners are turning up, having their treatment, and then disappearing. And frankly, who stands accused of this problem? It is, shall we say, liberal-minded NHS officials who don't ask too many questions. They just say, oh, the NHS is free, so please have your free treatment. Well, that's costing taxpayers a lot of money. Not acceptable again.
No, not at all. And I think you're absolutely right to highlight the difficulty that would ensue if any attempt was actually made to clamp down on this kind of stuff, and to say to someone that is here on a tourist visa or on a very temporary visa, you know what, you're probably not entitled to that kidney transplant, you're probably not entitled to that kind of elective procedure because you don't live here. That, I mean, to most people that would seem like basic common sense, that would seem like fairness. The NHS is there to serve the British public, not the world, effectively. But to many in the trade unions and to many GPs and doctors and nurses, their calling isn't to fairness, it isn't to the British taxpayer, it's not to the British public, it's to this kind of, again, higher crusade that they seem to think that they have. I mean, 256 million is actually, it's a staggering number, but I mean, the real cost of this is probably far, far higher when you consider the fact that foreign nationals, whether on tourist visas or short-term visas, incredibly entitled to GPs, to GP kind of treatment and to GP kind of consultations without the need to actually prove any residency, to have paid into the system at all as well. And what we need to get towards is we need to realise that our tourist visa system is being exploited left, right and centre. We need to start clamping down on those nationalities that show a pattern of using these visa routes to claim NHS treatment, and then we also need to start sending the bills straight to the capital cities of those countries as well, because we shouldn't have to be footing it. Well, that's what we're supposed to do, but officials fail to properly check if people are entitled to free NHS treatment. Last year alone, 44 million quid went down the Swanee because of this. That's a 63% increase on the 26 million that hospitals had to write off in 2017. So this will be people who work for the NHS for whom this sort of free treatment at the point of entry is like a religion. So they just sort of philosophically don't want to ask anyone
to pay for their NHS treatment. That's what's going on. So sort of liberal-minded NHS officials are letting foreigners rip us off to the tune of £256 million. It's not good enough, is it?
No, and there's nothing we can do about it. And it's a real shame, because when you look at NHS databases, you look at the information that the NHS has, there's a lot we can do with it to actually tackle the illegal migration crisis. We know that there are about 1.2 million illegal migrants in the country, and a lot of them will have to obviously go and receive some form of NHS care at some point in their lives. If that information was more readily available, and if we could start requiring that GPs or people working in the NHS start providing that information a bit more, and to start engaging with the Home Office and working in a more collaborative approach, we'd actually be able to make significant inroads into dealing with this illegal migration crisis as well. But unfortunately, as you identify, the kind of ideology that is pervasive in the NHS will make that very, very difficult, and there will be huge pushback at any attempts to
absolutely.
do so.
I think we should talk to some of these foreigners who've managed to rip off the NHS to find out what their secret is, because British citizens don't seem to even be able to get treatment from the NHS, but these guys, man, they're really coining it. 256 million quid's worth. Let me know what you think about that, folks. The NHS, they should be saying to everyone, look, the NHS will treat everyone, quite rightly so. We don't let people die or anything like that. But there is a system. They should be asked, if it's a foreigner, a visiting foreigner, where are you from? We need to talk to your government. We need to invoice your government, etc. The NHS just isn't bothering, and there go hundreds of millions of pounds worth of taxpayers' money. Yet again, a massive. The amount of our money that is wasted by these officials is just a national scandal. It really is. When we come back, Robert, as I say, we're going to take you outside your new normal comfort zone. We're going to talk about a couple of trans issues that, as a concerned citizen, I think you might be interested in. So that next. Stay tuned, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Got a couple of... still with Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. As I say, we're going to take him out of his comfort zone now and talk about another, I would say, pressing problem in this country. It is the warped things that seem to happen inside the kind of trans issue. Well, first of all, let's talk about the height of absurdity. There was the Ultimate Pool Women's Pro Series event. This was at the Robin Park Leisure Centre in Wigan on Sunday. serious proper tournament. After all the wannabes were excluded, knockout tournament, knockout all the women play. The final was competed in by two blokes, trans women, blokes who identify as women. So not women, two men competed for the Ultimate Pool Women's Pro Series event final. Piers Morgan said this is preposterous. Sharon Davis called it, bloody ridiculous and grossly wrong in every way. There were protesters inside the venue shouting, "He's a man, he's a man, save women's sport, he's a man." Well, this is getting ridiculous, isn't it, Robert?
Yeah, and I agree with those people chanting. I think, you know, we know and we're told repeatedly that women have difficulty accessing sports because in a large part they're very male dominated, but we seem to be bending over backwards to make it more difficult for those females that have actually managed to be an elite in their sport and have put in the hard yards, have trained and really perfected their trade. I mean, the idea that you know, a biological male is able to compete fairly with a female in pool when there are such differences in reach in terms of strength and, you know, across the board, just different biology fundamentally, you know, it just reeks of an injustice. And I think that, you know, you look over at what Donald Trump's done in America, and he's taken a really hard stand in this, and he is, you know, surrounded by women, signing that bill, signing that executive order, saying that, you know, women's sports is for women. We seem so far behind that. We seem stuck in the dark ages when compared to what's going on in America. And I can really only hope that, you know, the kind of leaps and bounds that America's taken since Trump was elected, we eventually get infected by as well, because at the moment it reeks of injustice, and I think we're actually going backwards.
Exactly right. Let's move on, still with trans issues, and this is pretty damn worrying. It involves the NHS as well. This involves a dedicated NHS nurse, name of Jennifer Melee. She's 40 years old. She works at St Helier Hospital down in Carshalton. I used to report on that hospital, and I used to be on a local paper down that way, so I know St Helier well. Massive hospital. Anyway, there's this guy in there. He's a convicted paedophile, and she's in big trouble because she called him Mr. And he identifies as a woman, and he said, "You have to call me Miss." Now, there were two reasons why Ms. Mel, Jennifer Mel, wouldn't change her viewpoint on this, wouldn't call him Miss. One is she's a Christian and she doesn't believe that men can just identify as women. She doesn't believe in that philosophically, religiously. And the other is it's medical. You know, this guy was in for a treatment that was you know, affected by his gender, by his sex. And when I say sex, I mean his gender. Gender is a word that's been hijacked by the trans community. Gender means, are you there are two genders, male and female, by the way. And she said, well, you know, he was a male and this was relevant. Anyway, during the ensuing row where Ms. Mel, Jennifer, said, well, you know, I'm sorry, you are a man and I'm not going to call you a woman. This guy, he started shouting at her and called her the N-word repeatedly. You know, now, so what's happening to him? Nothing at all. What's happening to Jennifer Mel? She's suspended for amid allegations of transphobia. World's going mad, isn't it?
Absolutely is, and it's interesting that in this particular circumstance where there's a transgender individual involved, that the Royal College of Nursing has decided to effectively throw their member under the bus by refusing to really stand by them in what would be a pretty straightforward case, I'd argue. This individual has been racially abused. She has basically tried to do the best medical service that she can to an individual. I mean, the use of terminology, gender-orientated terminology, was in relation to a catheter, and now if I was a patient I would want to make damn sure that the catheter was going in the right place, so I would be perfectly happy for that kind of language to be used. But I think, you know, we are all too keen as a society in general now to kind of allow people to luxuriate in this kind of victim status and to latch onto anything that they think elevates themselves to this kind of gold standard, which the gold standard now is people that are feeling aggrieved and have claimed some form of discrimination against themselves. And it ends up with effectively a two-tier society where people are scared to talk in terms that they should be talking in, especially in a medical setting. And it also ends up basically taking us to a position where, you know, people are stymied. People can't really have proper conversations because everyone is treading on eggshells. Everyone is kind of scared that they're being listened to, and no one is properly engaging with people and saying to people what they need to hear and what people are feeling.
So this guy was a paedophile. You know,
he could have been called a lot worse as well.
Yeah. Now, when he said, "Oh, you've got to refer to me as Miss, as a woman," Jennifer replied, "I'm sorry, I can't refer to you as her or she, as it's against my faith and Christian values. But I can call you by your name." So whatever name he or she had chosen for himself, the patient hit back, saying, "Imagine if I called you N-word. How about I call you N-word? Yes, black N-word." And then the patient lunged at her and had to be restrained. And then he threatened to make a complaint. Now, she is now suspended for alleged transphobia. Also, she had the temerity to give an interview to the Mail on Sunday about what happened to her. You lot at the local NHS Trust, the Epsom and St Helier University Hospitals NHS Trust, this is a free country. We have a free press, we have freedom of speech, and Jennifer was fully within her rights in a free democracy to give an interview to a newspaper. So you better be a bit careful here. They had, hadn't they?
Yeah, well, they've been found out, and what this nurse has really lifted the lid on is something that I would probably guess is happening across the board, in that, you know, nurses and doctors, individuals working on the front line trying to save lives and, you know, make people better, are being gummed up, being bound up in these kind of red tape, this kind of language management that serves no real purpose apart from, as I say, to make individuals that really just want attention feel more secure about themselves. I think the mistake perhaps the nurse made was to bring her Christianity into it, because, you know, as soon in this country, this day and age, as soon as you mention that you're a Christian, you are straight to the bottom of the pile. Your rights go way out of the window, and you are effectively, you know, your privilege shines through, and therefore you have to really take your beating. So I think that was probably the mistake she made. But it's a really sad state of affairs. I hope eventually the RCN begins to see common sense and stand by, but I think they've acted appallingly during this.
Yeah, absolutely. She's the wronged victim here, and but I think it's because of this trans obsession, and of course she had the temerity to go public with it. So they do say that the investigation and hearing is ongoing, and it wouldn't be right. The proceedings are still ongoing. It wouldn't be right for us to comment further. It wouldn't be right for you. It's not right for you to suspend Jennifer for a kick-off, and it won't be right if you punish her, particularly after what this guy said to her. Don't be stupid, you lot. Really. Jennifer, we stand with you. We really do. Robert, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Come and do it again soon. Robert Bates there from the Centre for Migration Control. Next up, we are going to talk about what I would consider to be the grim prospect of the RAF crack display team, the Red Arrows, flying around in future in Russian jets. Does that seem a bit wrong to you? It does to me. We'll talk about that after this break.
This only happened to me today on the way to the studio in this very building. I've told you this already. I'm in the lift.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think of this, Rebecca. This is how mad the world is. 2 men, am I allowed to say that? And a woman.
Yeah.
Doors open, floor 2. I said, ladies first. Looked at me like I'd literally got into her house on Christmas Day and weed on the kids. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do anymore. Oh, if we're starting this at 3, the world's gone nuts.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. The Red Arrows, the RAF's crack display team, amazing pilots who put on incredible displays. Basically for 50 years or so, they've been flying around in Hawk planes, Hawk T2 planes, apparently. And they stopped production. They've been around for half a century or so. They stopped production in 2020, and an alternative jet is required for these ace pilots. The plane that seems to be mainly in the frame, see that? That's good, that, isn't it? Is an aeroplane called the Aermacchi M364, which is partially designed by Italy, but mainly designed by Russia. So it's essentially a Russian plane. Defence Minister Maria Eagle said the Aermacchi M346 fast jet trainer is one of several market options available. Well, am I alone in thinking that maybe our sort of crack air display team, the RAF's crack air display team, should, you know, preferably, I suppose, go around in a jet made by Britain, but certainly not by Russia? Seems a bit odd. Let's talk to excellent former RAF fighter pilot Tim Davies. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Good to see you again, Kevin.
Always a pleasure. Well, what do you think about? I mean, I don't know much about aeroplanes or the RAF or anything like that, but it seems to me that the Red Arrows, if you like, almost the most famous iteration of our fabulous Air Force, shouldn't they be flying in British jets and certainly not Russian jets? What's going on here, do you think?
Well, it depends whether you want to destroy the country from the top down, doesn't it? With our uni-party approach, we shouldn't trust Labour, Conservatives or Reform. Look, it's all a bit of a plan, isn't it, really? You want to break down the national sort of identity of this country. And by doing that, of course, what better way than either disband the Red Arrows or get them flying an aircraft that isn't British? It's truly abhorrent, and it's the Hawk T1 they've flown. That aircraft is 50 years old, and I know that because I'm 50. I'm actually older than the aircraft by about 2.5 months. So as you can see there, Hawk T1, nothing really to replace it, because the Hawk T2 that I instructed on for about a decade, Kevin, again, there's only 28 of those. They've been plagued with engine problems. We've got to look elsewhere. There is a British company we can look at, by the way, but people don't want to look at the British company because it's easier to buy something off the shelf from overseas and neglect British industry.
What is the British company that we could look at?
Well, it's called Aerialist. I used to be the strategy director until about 2019, so I am slightly biased, but it is an absolutely stunning company. They are making a modular fast jet flying training aircraft, and they are getting traction. They've had financing from all over the world at the moment. The British government doesn't seem to have fully committed, which doesn't surprise me, of course, because it's much easier, isn't it, to, as I said, look elsewhere and just watch the decline of this absolutely once great, yet still awesome nation.
Let's tell you a story, apropos of nothing, but it was years ago, many years ago. I was down in Brighton, and it was a very, very sunny, crowded bank holiday Monday, I think it was. Anyway, millions of people on the beach, almost literally. And suddenly the Red Arrows arrived, and they were putting off this sort of classically amazing display. And suddenly, so they were going over the pier and all this. We're going, oh, wow, look at this. And then suddenly there was this sort of big bang. And everybody's going, what are they getting up to now? And we saw this sort of plane go past, whistling. And we noticed there was no one in it. And then a pilot had ejected. Had to eject, and the plane plunged into the sea, flew over the pier with no one in it, and the pilot survived. But that's my Red Arrow story. Actually, the only time I ever saw the Red Arrows, they screwed up. But they didn't do it. The point of that long rambling story is that was the exception that proved the rule. I mean, this is a display team, well, probably the best in the world, right?
Well, did they screw up that day, Kevin, or did they save many innocent lives on the ground? Is how you frame it, of course, isn't it? They are the world's greatest display team. There's no two ways about it. And of course, don't get me wrong, when they go around the world, other display teams come out and speak to the Red Arrows. It's not the other way around, by the way. The United States Air Force Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels, they all come up. The Snowbirds from Canada all come up to the Red Arrows and they talk to them because they're flying a very dated aircraft, but the level of skill, of course, within the team is exceptionally high. And that's the only job they do. They just train the whole time to make sure they're the best. And of course, unfortunately, I think we're letting them down massively. We're letting the British people down, Kevin, is what we're doing. Of course we are. How can we ever fly a display team? The Royal Air Force, the oldest air force in the world, how on earth can we portray ourselves out to the rest of the world without flying a British aircraft? It doesn't make sense, but maybe it's not supposed to make sense. It's just another thing, isn't it, that's going to drag this country down.
But what you're saying, Tim, and it's very important, is that the government, if it made some effort, could find a company to make a great jet for the Red Arrows. Instead, it looks as if they're going down the franchise out path, and they're just going to buy in some foreign jet, which, horror of horrors, might be Russian. I mean, that's almost treachery, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, the government's treacherous. I've said this before. Let's not think the government are intelligent. And it's not just this government, it's the governments preceding them. Look what the Conservatives did to this country. Look what Boris Johnson did with 4 times the level of immigration before he ever came in. So we're actually looking at the wrong thing here. We need to side with the British people, not with this autocratic state that we're living under. The Yak 130 was a Russian aircraft designed back in about 92, I think it was. And then it became the Alenia Aeromacchi M346, which was by Finmeccanica before they became a company called Leonardo. It's a great aeroplane. Let's not say it's not. It's a lovely aeroplane. It's a very good aeroplane. And we've got Royal Air Force students training on that airplane right now. And that's the thing. It's an easy shoe-in, isn't it? Because we've got Air Force guys out there. We've got Air Force guys in America. And why? It's because we haven't looked after our own flying training system because we privatized it back in 2008 and it didn't work out the way it should have worked. It's very easy to cover that up, isn't it? By buying something in as opposed to investing, as we should be doing, in British industry, creating British jobs for British people, getting into the houses that they need and building the families. And as I said, getting them the work to support those families. It's much easier to go and buy something else. It's disgraceful, Kevin, is what it is. I can't sit back from it. I was in the service for 20 years. Just seeing what's happening now, unfortunately, from the top down is to me, absolutely abhorrent.
I haven't got long left, Tim. Great to talk to you again. But just very quickly, what is going on with the RAF generally? Aren't they sort of rejecting anybody who happens to be white and middle class as a pilot in favour of looking for people of colour, for women, etc., whereas I believe you and I have discussed this before. Surely in the area of defence of the realm in the air, the only criterion for hiring anyone should be that they are the best. Nothing else. And yet we're bringing in other factors, aren't we?
Well, I mean, good men and women like yourself in these positions, Kevin, actually kicked the Air Force in the touch, and rightly so. You basically shone a mirror up to them, didn't you? And you said, this is who you are. You are not a meritocratic organisation now because you're employing people purely based on their race and their gender. I call it sex because I'm not a new woke person. I just have one or two, you know what I mean? Old school is what I am. But don't forget, this is not just the Royal Air Force. This was driven from the Cabinet Office. This was driven through the Ministry of Defence and then into the Air Force, as it was in education, healthcare, as it was through across all defence. This is the whole problem. We've just seen it with the Sentencing Council, where you'll get a pre-sentencing report unless you're a white man in this country. That's absolutely horrific, and luckily that was kicked into touch. It's unstoppable. Yeah. That's the country we live in now, and the only hope we've got, Kevin, is good people like yourself and your audience that can stand up to it and say this is not good enough. And
you too. We need people like you, Tim. You and me, white guys, you know, middle class, middle-aged. We're an endangered species, but great to talk to you again. Come on again soon. It's been too long. Tim Davies, a former RAF fighter pilot there, giving it to you straight. Amazing, eh? Russian jets with the red arrows. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Next up, Kinsey Schofield on the Royals. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 60 sizzling minutes still to go of tonight's Political Asylum. Then Petri Hoskin will be in the studio to tell you what she's got lined up for you from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m, taking you through to the small hours. But we've got an hour left ourselves. In a little while, 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, the lines are open to you. Got lots of calls. You know what we're talking about. 0344 499 1000. Lucy Connolly, the middle-class mum, the wife of a Tory councillor, serving 2 years and 7 months for hurty words on social media. She wants to get out to see her little girl, her 12-year-old girl. Why won't we let her? Come on, this is ridiculous. All those people in jail for hurty words on social media. Tuti Akir went to the White House and said, oh, we're so proud of our tradition of free speech. Yeah, a tradition of free speech that you just trampled all over. Honestly, what is wrong with these socialists? They hate freedom of speech. Particularly Keir. 0344 499 1000. And what should we do about the British state school that's cancelled Easter? Isn't it about time that headmistresses, head teachers like Stephanie Mander were told, you work for the state. It's not up to you whether or not you cancel Easter to be inclusive to the Muslims and to the other religions. It's not up to you. It's not your job to impose your worldview on your pupils. Shouldn't we stop her doing this? Shouldn't we make her have Easter services? It's unbelievable. We have got an official religion in this country. It's called Christianity, and head teachers should follow that religion, don't you think? 0344 499 1000. And also, why is the Home Office not telling us how many children arrive here across the channel illegally, accompanied by adults who are not related to them? Why are they not telling us that? What would be your theory on that? They say, oh, we can't tell you because you might be able to identify them. No, we wouldn't. They're coming up with excuses. 0344499 1000. And I guess finally, give me a call because I think it's kind of wrong. Do you fancy the RAF Red Arrows, the crack display team, flying around in Russian jets? Isn't that kind of wrong? Doesn't that seem wrong to you? 0344499 1000. Before we get to any of that, your calls and your WhatsApp messages and your other messages, it is time now to talk the royals. Let's talk about Harry. Let's talk about Meghan. With of course, our brilliant royal commentator over there on the west coast of America, the great Kinsey Schofield. Welcome, Kins.
I cannot believe this last weekend, Kevin. It feels like it's been a year since I've talked to you between all of the news that's happened over the last few days. And I mean, well, I'll give credit where credit's due. Harry and Meghan continue to surprise me in the worst way possible.
Yeah, they always surprise you downwards, don't they?
Yeah.
You never go, wow, I'm really impressed with them. It's always, oh, no, it's a new low, you know. Anyway, before we get to Meghan, and I'm afraid we will have to get to her at a certain point. Let's talk about Harry. Harry is going back to court tomorrow here in London. There were reports earlier, we thought he might be in the country, but there have been no official sightings, so we don't know whether he's personally going to the appeal court tomorrow or not. But his case comes up. This is his latest attempt, his latest desperate bid to persuade the courts, to persuade this government, that when he comes to Britain, indeed when he comes with his family as well, his kids, maybe Meghan, although I don't think she'll ever come back to this country again, but he wants all of him, his family, his wife and his kids, when they come back, to be given armed police protection, to be guarded by coppers with guns. Now, he doesn't warrant that because he's no longer a frontline royal. So he's been told time and time again, no, no, no. He's appealing yet again. The last time the judge told him, look, mate, it didn't actually use those terms, but he basically said, look, mate, this is a lost cause. You do not warrant this. You're not a frontline royal. The rest of you, your brother, your dad, your mother-in-law, the Queen, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, they're frontline royals. So when they go out, Kate as well, of course, when they go out, they get armed police protection. You're not a frontline royal. You chose to stop being a frontline royal. You chose to leave this country and seek your fortune abroad. Therefore, sorry, mate, you don't get cops with guns. You just don't get that. But he will not stop. He's like a dog with a bone. He's going back. This will end up costing him more money, and I would say he is doomed to the same decision. He's not going to get armed police protection. Why do you think he carries on with this lost cause, Kinsey?
Well, first of all, I think that I don't even think we've been as that aggressive towards him. We haven't been as ugly to him in this scenario. The fact is, Ravik has always said police protection is an option, but it's based on the circumstances. Harry, I would say 10 out of 10 times so far since returning to the UK, maybe 9 out of 10 times since returning to the UK, Prince Harry has been afforded the type of protection that he demands. And it's just on a case-by-case basis. If they want to come out to shill Meghan Markle's $28 jar of honey, I don't know if Ravik is going to, collect. I don't think that they're going to justify police protection for something like that. But if Prince Harry's coming out to support the king, if he's coming out to support his brother, or Well Child or another one of these big events that attracts a lot of attention and A-listers and people similar to Prince Harry, yeah, Ravik's going to go, well, we'll see you there. We'll make sure that you're protected in the way that you're asking to be protected. But otherwise, Prince Harry's protected.
But you see, it's far be it for me to correct you, Kinsey, but to an extent, I mean, I know you get the point, but you're kind of missing the point in what you're saying, because yes, Harry can request guns anytime, cops with guns anytime he comes over, and may well be granted them. But that's not good enough for him, because what annoys him is the rest of the royal family, especially William and Kate, don't have to ask. They automatically get armed police protection. That's what he's moaning about. That's what he's complaining about. I want the same as William. I want the same as Kate. Well, he's never going to get it. So I think what we're dealing with here is a kind of psychological trait on the part of Prince Harry. He just cannot take the fact that he's got a lower status than the rest of the royal family when he comes back to Britain.
Well, you can thank your wife, because these types of questions never happened until Meghan Markle entered the picture and was a giant pain in the you-know-what. Prince Harry was always considered to be in the fold, and everything that Prince William got under King Charles, or under Prince Charles at the time, Prince Harry got to enjoy too. And it wasn't until Meghan Markle entered the picture and started accusing innocent people of racism that the royal family said, you know what? You're not on. We don't trust you in this circle anymore. If you're not going to play by the rules, and if you're going to try to wreak havoc on this institution, then you no longer get all of the support that we get. So this was a choice that Prince Harry made when he stepped down as a working royal. He spent over $1 million on this campaign so far, and I imagine it will be over that at the end of the day. And is he really going to get on a plane to go over there and fight this the day before and the day of Meghan Markle's podcast launch? Well, who's going to take her picture tomorrow is what I would ask.
Yeah, he's got a very important role.
Her professional photographer has to be there and in position to get 90 snaps of her around someone else's home or garden so that she can post on Instagram that she broke the internet with another podcast that no one's going to listen to.
And people saying that the King and Camilla, the Queen, have flown off to Italy for an official state visit. But people were saying that probably Charlie got on a plane as fast as he could because he heard that Harry was on his way over and he doesn't want to bump into his problematic son. But so far, we'll find out, I guess, tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, whether or not Harry's here. But the case will go ahead. Now, meanwhile, his problems with Sentebale, his charity, continue apace. And we're now being told that Harry should be nervous, and I'm saying that in quotes, that is what insiders are saying, about his alleged unpleasant note to the Sentebale chair, Dr. Sophie Chandorka. And this is when he apparently demanded that she should explain herself after she had the temerity to not do exactly what she was told by the Duke of Sussex. So apparently now that the Charity Commission are officially investigating Sentebale, so this happens, I think this has happened over the last few days. It's an official investigation. So they may well get to see this letter, this haughty letter that Harry is alleged to have sent Sophie Chandorka. And people are saying he should be very nervous about this because they're saying that this letter proves that he's somewhat entitled about everything that he does. And what Sophie Chandorka was furious about was that he seemed to see Sentebale, a charity for the poor African kids who've been afflicted by the scourge of AIDS and HIV, lost their parents, maybe suffering from it themselves, that he was using this charity as an extension of brand Sussex. asking her to put out statements about his wife, Sophie refusing and saying, no, that's not what this charity is about. This isn't Brand Sussex. This is Centre Barley. So this problem, this raging conflict continues apace. And it's looking worse for Harry by the day, isn't it?
Well, I'd like to introduce Prince Harry to a word called karma. You know, it was Prince Harry that released private text messages between Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and Meghan Markle in his book Spare. And now we might see text messages between Prince Harry, Dr. Sophie Chandaka, and Meghan Markle released throughout this investigation, because reports also came out over the weekend that said that Dr. Sophie had a very negative experience with Meghan Markle in Miami, Florida, during that fundraising polo event where Dr. Sophie received a no RSVP from Meghan for this event. Meghan turns up with this A-lister, Serena Williams, and the entourage of security and staff and the drama. So it absolutely wreaks havoc on the logistics of this event that had been planned for months in South Africa. And after Sophie says hi to Meghan and goes over to greet her, she said she's dismissed by Meghan. Meghan asks the staff to find her and Serena Williams champagne. So both Archewell and Senabale staff are running around like chickens with their heads cut off to find Meghan Markle her booze. Dr. Sophie says she was eager to introduce people to Meghan, but Meghan was off alone with Serena in the VIP tent and didn't want anything to do with her and did not want to engage with the donors. And once the event was over, and this is after the trophy, the bizarre trophy choreography and everything, it was Meghan that texted Dr. Sophie Chandaka. The content of that text, we have no idea. But again, this is something that could come out in that investigation. And the reply from Dr. Sophie was icy enough to send Harry into a tailspin. One source told the Daily Mail, above all else, it was the way that Meghan snubbed Dr. Sophie on arrival that was the reason she would not issue some kind of supporting statement. So now we have this interesting new timeline where there is disrespect at the event. And then once the event is over, Meghan reaches out personally to Dr. Sophie. I'd ask you, what do you think that text message was? Can you believe what they're saying about this trophy, video, or whatever? Dr. Sophie apparently shuts her down. And then that's when we see Prince Harry step in. And they say that when Dr. Sophie was icy to Meghan and refused to defend her, she became persona non grata when it came to the Sussexes.
I'll tell you, and the sort of headline on all of this appeared in the papers across the weekend, both in New York and London, that the source of this kind of conflict is the fact that Meghan never liked Dr. Sophie Chandaka. She doesn't like her. It looks to me as if feelings are very much mutual there. But I would suggest that the reason that Meghan doesn't like Dr. Sophie Chandaka is that Dr. Sophie Chandaka is a strong woman who won't just automatically do exactly as the Sussexes tell her. She stood up to them and said, no, this isn't what this charity does. We are not Brand Sussex. I'm not doing this. I am not issuing a statement of support about Meghan, and so on and so forth. So I think Meghan doesn't like Sophie because Sophie won't do what Meghan tells her.
Well, let me tell you what I've learned about Meghan Markle in 2025. It's that she loves to throw back an alcoholic beverage. This is something I truly had never seen or thought about before. But thanks to With Love Meghan, where she's constantly drinking, I mean, constantly drinking throughout her series, Thanks to this story from Dr. Sophie Shandaka of every employee that's ever worked under Harry and Meghan doing cartwheels around a polo field looking for bottles of champagne for Meghan and Serena Williams. I now have a clear understanding of the status of Meghan Markle's liver, and I'm going to start praying for it immediately.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, I'm not shy in criticising the Duchess of Sussex, but I'm not going to have a go at her about her drinking. And you know why?
Why?
People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Okay.
But I tell you, it's an interesting point, Kinsey. Let's quickly, before we part company, always a pleasure to talk to you, of course. Let's talk about As Ever, her lifestyle site. Now, last week things went on sale. The jam, the non-jam, that's got to be called fruit spread because there's not enough sugar in it. The honey, the herbal tea, the flour sprinklings, the edible flowers, all the tat that went on sale. Well, you and I discussed this because very, very swiftly it was all sold out, and she said, the shelves are empty, but my heart is full because everybody wants all this stuff so much. Well, the word is, it's an old tactic. You make your products scarce, so you create the illusion of demand. So, oh my God, they've sold out already. Everybody wants this stuff. Well, actually, deliberately, you didn't put much on sale in the first place. That could be the technique that Meghan was using in order to make As Ever look like a wild success. But anyway, one thing that has sold out extremely quickly, apparently, is her honey. You know, the honey we saw her painfully making during With Love Meghan, you know, the beehive and all that, and then the candles and God knows what from real beeswax. You can get beeswax from your local beekeeper. I live in the middle of London. Anyway, she's put the honey on sale. That's sold out and people are complaining. And now she's having to refund the money to loads of people who didn't get the honey. So I'm beginning to wonder, well, we thought, oh, very clever tactic. Don't have too much on sale, sell out swiftly, create the illusion that everything is big in demand. Good tactic. I'm beginning to think maybe it wasn't a tactic. This is just classic Meghan being useless again, not enough for sale, and now she's having to refund all this money. That isn't good, is it?
Well, I'd say there are elements of, I do think, I have heard that there was the scarcity marketing ploy. I do believe
I tend to go along with that.
An artificial demand that they were trying to create. But I'd also stress that there is stupidity involved in a lack of due diligence, because last week the Daily Mail reported that Snow Commerce, and this is the company that at the bottom of Meghan's website, it says they are the ones that are responsible for the shipping and for the sending and for the actual sales on the bottom of asever.com. But Snow Commerce has a horrible reputation here in the States. They have a 1-star. I know you'll know what this means. So they have a 1-star with the Better Business Bureau. And the reason that they have the 1-star is because customers, not necessarily Meghan Markle customers, but other companies that use Snow have complained that they never got the product, that the product did not actually exist, and that Snow just put it up for sale. So, you know, if you look at some of the comments that the Daily Mail featured in this article that happened well before this incident, one specifically said they are ridiculously bad. They're allegedly selling items that they don't have in stock or don't exist at all. Okay. This happened before. This was out there in the world before Meghan chose this company to use to sell her products. So my argument is, because Meghan says, oh my gosh, we just couldn't keep up. Too many sales, too many visits. It was, it was a glitch in the system. But my argument is, why didn't you do your due diligence when working with Snow Commerce? Why didn't you look at reviews from the Better Business Bureau and see what other people were saying about snow commerce before you chose them to be your retailer? And so, yes, I think it's both. I think she faked the hype, but I also think she did not do her due diligence in finding the right e-commerce partner. And I'd also say, Ted Sarandos, what are you doing continuing to put yourself out there and the Netflix brand out there when you guys are making huge and embarrassing mistakes like this? This is embarrassing, to sell product you don't have to issue refunds and say, I'm so embarrassed, I'm going to send you free product. I'm sending you free product. I'm giving you a refund. This is not. And then and then tomorrow you're going to drop a podcast where you try to tell me how to become a female entrepreneur. Meghan Markle, go take a nap.
Yeah. So her Confessions of a Female Founder podcast hits the market tomorrow. I simply can wait. That'll be dreary as hell. But to all the people who didn't get honey, and apparently it was quite a few of them, she has written a personal note, or had a personal, dear friend. My goodness, what a whirlwind this week has been. Thank you so much for the support. It really means so much to me. I was so sorry to hear about what happened with your order, and that due to overselling, we are not able to get you the limited edition honey. I should say $28. $28 for a jar of honey. Please know the team worked very hard in every department and felt just as sad when we learned what had happened. She's promising that more goodness will be coming soon. So that's
diabetes.
That's the special meeting.
But Kevin, if I give you $28 because I want to buy something that you're selling, and you tell me I actually don't have it, but then I open up Instagram and the Kardashians have it, and Mindy Kaling has it, and all of these other influencers are getting it for free, I'm mad. Yeah. What am I a peasant? Like, it's that whole Meghan the Duchess versus the commoners thing that she's trying to shake, but is so strong here in the States. This is not a good look. All of the A-listers get your swag for free, but I pay for it, and I'm told that I'm not good enough. It's not ready for me yet.
Yeah, and I wonder what the markup is on the honey. $28 for £21.60. That is, folks, for you in Britain. Flour sprinkles, $15. That's £11.60, and that raspberry non-jam, $14, £10.80. I mean, this is ridiculously high prices. So I suspect that I'll be surprised if she makes a fortune out of all of this. But who knows with Meghan? It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow with Harry's court case, and interesting to see what happens with As Ever going forward. And as ever, Kinsey, you and I will continue to comment on all this for all we are worth. Brilliant to talk to you as always. You'll be back on Thursday. Thank you so much. Kinsey Schofield, royal commentator, with the latest on the Harry and Meghan psychodrama. Get in touch. Let me know what you think about all this if you like. 0344 499 1000. But mostly we'll talk about all the other issues we've spoken about so far in the show. I've got a lot of calls waiting, a lot of messages to read out. So that next, stay tuned.
This only happened to me today on the way to the studio in this very building. I've told you this already. I'm in the lift.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think of this, Rebecca. This is how mad the world is. 2 men, am I allowed to say that? And a woman.
Yeah.
Doors open, floor 2. I said, ladies first. Looked at me like I'd literally got into her house on Christmas Day and weed on the kids. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do anymore. Oh, if we're starting this at 3, the world's gone nuts.
Yeah.
Because Harry and Meghan have never actually worked in their lives. But fancy picking on a black female, which Harry has just done, given, as you've laid out, all of what's gone before us, accusing the royal family of racism, but of course very cleverly not saying who, so that the thing would fester and fester. So it has come back to bite them. But where we shouldn't be surprised is, don't forget, Harry, this is the individual that years ago was photographed wearing a Nazi uniform.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just read a couple of messages. Here we go. This is from Ian. He said, I don't know about you. He's talking about, I think there's a reference to old Lindsay Hoyle, Just Stop Hoyle, the big spending Speaker of the House. He says, this is Ian, says, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about ordering some caviar and champagne for my Truth to Power theme night party. Exactly. What else have we got? David in the cab in London says, I think the parents should have their own Easter. Those parents should have their own Easter bonnet parade. That will put 2 fingers up to that teacher, wouldn't it? That's the head teacher who's cancelled Easter. I'll read a few more messages in just a second. Let's go to the phones, though, straight away. Now, earlier we had a terrible connection. It was Laura Jane from Hampshire, and she lives in Hampshire, and she wanted to talk about the teacher who cancelled Easter at her state primary school. So she's back now. Hopefully we've got a better line, Laura Jane. So
I hope so.
That's much better. You sounded like a Dalek earlier.
Yes,
so what would you like to say, Laura Jane?
Well, I live in Hampshire, as you said, and several of us wrote separately to this head teacher saying that we happen to be all Roman Catholics, that when we were at school, even in the 70s, which is obviously a long time ago, we learned about other religions, and the message we were taught was about tolerance. But I feel this is a step too far, as it's denying the children in that primary school their cultural heritage. And it's straightforward indoctrination as far as I'm concerned. In fact, it has the opposite effect of inclusivity, because it's excluding the indigenous Christian beliefs and traditions, which, let's face it, we live in a Christian country. Our king is the head of the church. And it's not really the right way to teach children to accept each other.
Here's the thing, Laura Jane. A lot of people seem to think this is an issue of debate. Are we still a Christian? Are we really? I mean, come on. Yes, times have changed. People don't go to church like they used to. But as a matter of political fact, this is a Christian country. We are not a secular nation. As I said earlier, interestingly, for example, Iraq is a secular nation. It has no official national religion. We do have one, and as such, our state schools should follow that religion. And Stephanie Mander's contention that somehow or other the kids, A, having an Easter religious service, and B, a fun Easter bonnet parade is excludes other religions, is ridiculous. Now, in Eastleigh, you probably know this kind of thing, but Eastleigh has got a population of about 136,000 people. Of those, just over 1,000, about 1,300, are Muslims. So 1% of the population of that town are Muslims. And because of that, Stephanie Mander thinks she's entitled to cancel Christian religious festivals for her pupils. I would say it's about time the state, her employers, turned round and said, you are not empowered to do this. You are not empowered to subject your pupils to your worldview, because that's what's going on here. She's brainwashing those kids, isn't she?
Yeah, but the problem is that this is not the only school in the country where they're afraid, or, you know, the educational establishment is afraid to stand up for the rights of the indigenous. As you say, not everyone goes to church, but our king is the head of the Church of England, and as such, we shouldn't forget that not like France is a secular country, and but in our schools we should be taught. They should be taught about diversity, and diversity and
I would suggest they should be taught about diversity as little as possible, because if you overdo it, they'll be inculcated into this kind of sickness that we've got, this obsession we've got.
Indoctrination in all the schools.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
It really is worrying. And if you start in the primary schools, then obviously by the time they get to secondary school, where it's even worse, it's a lost cause.
Yeah, here's one thing for you, though, Laura Jane. Never fear that while the poor kids who go to the Norwood Primary School, that's the school in question in Eastleigh, won't be getting Easter, won't be getting their traditional, they've had this for years apparently, a kind of fun Easter bonnet parade. They're not getting that, but Stephanie Mander, fun-loving Stephanie, has organised for the kids Refugee Week. That'll help them. What a laugh that'll be. It's unbelievable. It's so po-faced, miserable, and frankly, it's left-wing. And that's what's going on here. We've got a left-wing teacher imposing her political ideology on innocent children, and that shouldn't be happening. Laura Jane, I've got to move on. I'm with you all the way, though. I've got to take another call, but please keep in touch. That was excellent. Thank you very much. Laura Jane there from Hampshire, who's been in touch with Stephanie Mander, along with other Hampshire parents, to say you can't be doing this. You can't be doing this. You can't cancel Easter, Stephanie. You really can't. Who told you could? Why isn't the government doing something about this? Listen, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, we'll talk to Jay in Essex, who wants to talk about Lucy Connolly, and she is the mother, the 42-year-old mother who's doing 2 years and 7 months inside for posting hurty words on social media. And Keir Starmer says we've got freedom of speech, says this is a free country. Starmer, you're putting people in jail for things they write on social media. Are you actually serious? Come on. That next. Stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the phones in just a second here, but first here's a WhatsApp voice note. It's from Anna and it's on Two-Tier Britain.
Yes, obviously, this poor woman should be let out. Please don't forget Julie Sweeney, the grandmother who was locked up for 15 months for a Facebook post. Please don't forget Peter Lynch, the grandfather who died in prison. When Starmer, the monster, jails people like that, he jails us all. He's trying to get people to be too scared to speak, so he imprisons you in your own views. Well, don't. Everyone speak up. Post whatever you want. Stay within the boundaries of the law, but post. Let's embarrass him. Let's humiliate him. There's millions of us out here. What are you going to do? Lock us all up for our views? Our views will be very clear in 4 years. Let me tell you that for nothing.
Tell you what, Anna, it does look like he'll lock us up. If he doesn't like our views, he'll lock us up. That's what he did with all those people in the summer. As I always say, some of them, you know, you can't go around throwing bricks at the coppers and you can't go around trying to set fire to mosques or migrant hotels. You can't do that. But a lot of those people were genuine protesters worried about the migrant crisis, and Keir Starmer basically locking a load of them up and saying they're all far-right thugs was disgusting and disgraceful. Should never have happened. It was an affront to freedom of speech, to freedom of expression in this country. This guy, and everyone was like, oh, he's done very well sorting out the riots. He didn't do well. He didn't do well. It was a dark day in British history. His solution to the riots was to lock up people disproportionately, to take them and put them in court within days, have them in prison within a week. You know, kids, 18-year-olds getting 3 years, people on Facebook, on Twitter, just put hurty words. Do me a favour. Do me a favour. Let's go back to the phones. Another person who, quite rightly, in my view, wants to talk about Lucy Connolly, and that is Jay from Essex. Hello, Jay.
Oh, hi, Kevin. Yeah, I agree with that last call, actually. It's obviously a political choice. He made it obvious when he gave the speech afterwards. Like you just said, you know, they're going to be in front of a judge, they're going to be in prison. They were all told to vote to plead guilty. But what I want to know is, I mean, she's inside because she's married to a Conservative MP. Let's be honest.
Oh, no, councillor, Tory councillor.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that. I mean, as the lady who just gave us a WhatsApp note pointed out, there was that Julie Sweeney, wasn't it? She's got 15 months. She lived in a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. She put something a bit silly on Facebook. It was about 25 words. It was read by about 7 people, and she got 15 months. So, you know, Lucy Connolly's problem, I think, was that what she tweeted did come across as quite racist, and this government gets like really wound up about anything that you could interpret as racism. Now, as I say, what Lucy wrote, absolutely despicable. She shouldn't have said it, but you know, she's basically, I don't want to use sexist old terms, but she's a housewife and a mum in Middle England. You know, she said, oh, these people should be mass deported and they should set fire to those hotels. If that makes me a racist, I don't care. Well, you know, that wasn't great, but it's 2 years and 7 months. It's ridiculous.
Kevin, what about the Labour MP that was at a rally, put his finger across
it wasn't it was a Labour councillor. I know the one you mean. Right. We've got to be careful here because he's still awaiting trial.
Yeah, but he's a video. Now, if that isn't inciting violence in a crowd...
Well, he is facing that. He is facing those charges. But his case, why is it that his case has taken now, what is it, more than a year to come to court, whereas all of those white working class alleged rioters, they were in court within a couple of days and in prison within a week.
Precisely, because it's political, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course, 100%, Jay. We are living in a two-tier justice country ruled by two-tier Keir. No doubt about it. Jay, excellent call as always. Call me again. Got to move on, though. Thank you very much. Jay from Essex there. Let me know what you think about Lucy Connolly. She should be released. To Suella Braverman, Liz Truss, Richard Tice. They're right. She is the epicentre of two-tier justice, and if we let her out, it would be a step towards a better country, I think. Well, let's go back to break. One more set of messages when we come back. More of your calls, more of your messages, and then Petri Hoskin will be in soon to tell you what's on her show from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. So still a little bit to come, so stick around.
In one of their documents that where they actually say that the trustees accept that ESG risks will impact on the returns of the fund. Well, hang on. I mean, that literally means they're accepting that political ideology is more important than their fiduciary duties to the beneficiaries of the pension fund. And I just think it's another example where the obsession with net zero and environmental, social, governance issues is costing the taxpayer huge sums of money.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go straight back to the phones and talk to Mike in Stoke-on-Trent. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Kev. It's just a very quick one. The question actually came from management.
Mm-hmm.
My wife said to me, and I never thought about it.
Yeah.
Now, what Lucy wrote was not nice. I don't agree with it, but it was a haughty word, right? Now, we're in Stoke. We're not far from Manchester.
Mm.
What about a bunch of councillors and 2 MPs and what they wrote?
Yeah.
How come they've never been dragged in?
That's a really good point. None of them have faced any criminal problems, have they? Absolutely. But again, Mike, this is it. This is two-tier justice, you know. So if you're a white working class people who are protesting against the migrant crisis or your fears for the migrant crisis, then you went to jail very, very quickly. If you're a Labour MP protesting against Israel, you'll never go to prison.
No, you might not get in the country neither.
Yeah, well, no, that's true. You won't get into Israel, but you know, if you protest about Israel or anything like that, then you're fine. But if you protest about Muslims, they'll probably send you to prison.
What are we? I mean, all right, I'm white, I'm British, I was born here, and I'm proud of my country. So my other question is simple: how come I've got less rights than other people?
It's a good question, and you shouldn't have less rights or fewer rights than other people, but you do, Mike, and that's the way this country's going. There's something sick at the heart of this nation at the moment, and I blame Keir Starmer. Mike, very good point, good call. Thank you very much. Please call me again. Let's quickly go to Judy. This is a WhatsApp voice note.
Why don't, to stop people taking advantage of the NHS, why don't we say anybody who enters the country has to show proof of medical insurance? Because when we go abroad, we always get medical insurance. So we all keep it in a little folder so it's all nicely together. That's all you have to do. And just show it. And if you don't show proof of medical insurance, you can't come into the country. End of story.
Well, it's a good idea, Judy. Certainly would stop the NHS spaffing £256 million worth of free treatment that they gave to foreigners who conned them out of it, basically. Oh, yeah, I'll pay you later. But officials from the NHS not asking the right questions is costing us one hell of a lot of money. Right, it's that time. We have to go to Tarquin in London. Hi, Tarquin.
My point, sir.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Oh, not bad. Been a while. Go on.
Well,
where you been all my life?
Well, I've been writing that next song for.
You got to come on with a song, but maybe not tonight.
But it was a DEI related one, so give us a heads up when it's going to be, and I'll do it. Okay.
All right. Well, we must do your DEI song this week.
It's worth it.
But not right now. Let's talk about the migrants. What's going down?
Could you just to help me recap for the listeners who might not have heard what you were saying earlier on about the freedom of information request about the children coming over on the boats, Kevin? Can you just recap that a minute?
Well, basically, our friend Liam from Folkestone put in a freedom of information request because he lives there. He sees these boats coming across. He sees the migrants getting landed, and he is seeing more and more kids arriving. You know, like with one bloke or one woman, and he has concluded that these kids don't look as if they're related to these people. So he's asked the Home Office how many children accompanied by adults are accompanied by adults who are not related to them. So how many unrelated children arrive with adults who are not their kith and kin, if I can put it that way. And the Home Office has come back and said, well, the numbers involved for that request are so low, the exact figures are so low that would, if we gave you those figures, it would enable you to identify these children. How?
Well, two things. A, you're right. How? There's no way. Where's the maths on that? Where's the workings on that? Where's the evidence? There isn't. They haven't presented. I personally think, and tell me if you think, is that the highest court in the land, the Parliament, at our court, the People's Court, made a decision, and it was unfortunate, it was Blair, under the Freedom of Information Act, the terms thereof, that when you or I or any one of us legal British citizens put in a request for an FOI request, we expect full disclosure on every bit of info, almost like a DS, for a data protection. So for them to say, oh, it's so insignificant, we can't tell you, isn't that similar to you or I or anyone else submitting figures to say the HMRC, when we get an HMRC tax demand, say, Mr. O'Sullivan, could you tell us what your expenses were for the period of tax under scrutiny? You would say, oh, sorry, they were so low in his
exactly.
And they're going to go, oh, they were low, weren't they? Oh, we'll just take your word for it. Yeah, that's fine.
That's a good analogy. Fine. Good analogy, Tarquin. That's exactly it. There are two things to say about this. As a journalist, I can tell you this. The first thing government officials, police, everybody try to do when you put in a freedom of information request is see if they can work out a way not to give you the information you ask for. So you have to be very careful the way you frame the question, because if they can see a way out of it, they'll seize on it. Now, the second thing so that's what's happened with Liam here. They've seized on a way out of giving him the information he asked for. But the other element to discuss, quite rightly, as you point out, Tarquin, when they say, oh, the figures are so low, the exact figure is so low that to give you those numbers would help to identify the children. It's like, well, that's a value judgment on the Home Office's department. You say the figures are low, I might decide that's not the case. So we do not ask for freedom of information requests to be hammered with their value judgments. But this is the sort of thing they do. Now, Liam will no doubt appeal against this. We might get there in the end. But trust me, freedom of information requests are always met with as much opposition as the officialdom can possibly come up with.
You're absolutely right. Thank you for that clarification. Absolutely brilliant as usual. My final word on this is, if they're doing that for this, what else are they doing it with, Kevin?
Oh, they do it all the time, trust me. Yes. Trust me. Tarquin, very good points as always. Come back later in the week, got to do your DEI song. I literally cannot wait. So there's Tarquin there. He'll be back later for a bit of musical entertainment later in the week. He writes these songs, they're good. Now, finally, let's go to Ken in Cardiganshire, who wants to talk about the head teacher who cancelled Easter. Hello, Ken. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kevin. I was just going to say, I wonder if this raging hypocrite is going to cancel the Easter holidays and make all her staff come in and work.
Yeah, I bet she doesn't. I bet she doesn't. She's replacing Easter celebrations for the kids. Now, you know, Easter services, you know, I think that's quite important, but the kids probably don't love that much. But what they did enjoy, always, was the kids' traditional Easter bonnet parade. That's been cancelled as well. But the kids now can enjoy Stephanie Mander's replacement for the Easter celebrations, Ken. That is Refugee Week. They're going to have a high old time, won't they?
Yeah, they will. But, I mean, surely if she doesn't acknowledge Easter, she's not going to acknowledge the holidays, is she? And by the same token, is she going to get rid of the Christmas holidays as well?
Well, no doubt she'll try. I wouldn't mind betting. But I just don't think she should be allowed to. I don't think it should be. It's her job. It's her job. She works for the state. She's the headmistress of a state school. It should not be her position to decide whether or not that her school celebrates the state religion. It's as simple as that. In fact, she should be told that she stepped outside her remit. Ken, good call. Thank you very much. Please call me again. Ken in Cardiganshire. And Petri Hoskin is in the studio. Hi, Petri.
I am. How are you?
I'm all right.
There we go, plugged in.
She's just putting her microphone in.
You were just
I was a bit quick there,
You were
wasn't
a bit previous there.
Bit
previous.
Premature. What am I talking about? What would you like to say about your show?
Right, coming up, the MI6 chief has warned that Britons need to prepare for a new form of conscription to tackle Putin.
What do they mean by a new form?
Well, it means that we all have to give some service to our country. So I want to know, this is the phone-in
What does that mean? What about me? I mean, I'm too old to be in the services.
Well, no, you could go and clean bombs or something. I don't know. Polish
bombs.
Polish a missile. I don't know. But we've all got to find something we can do to be in service to our country. So I'm just wondering if people feel inclined to be in service to this country, considering it's not really in service to us anymore.
Yeah, that's an interesting call.
So that's what I'm going to be asking at midnight.
Would you fight for your country, or would you perform this new form of service, which is basically polishing missiles?
Well, that's the first thing I could come up with that you might be suitable for. There might be other things.
See, I quite like the idea of polishing missiles. I don't know why.
So that's coming up at midnight. And also at the beginning of the programme, we're talking about the end of globalisation, which has been said now. What does that look like? Because we're all so intertwined. So we'll be talking about that as well.
That's interesting, because Keir Starmer has actually said...
Literally said the end of... It can't be the end of globalisation. It's all we know.
And can I just say...